Hello, hello, hello. It is Thursday and we are going live today. And we're already in July. Tomorrow is July 4th. Today is July 3rd. I cannot believe it. Time is going by faster than I imagined. But as always, I am Dr. Tanji. I am the CEO and principal consultant of Liaison Educational Partners. What do we do here? We support educators. And for me, an educator is one who leads a state, who leads a district, who leads a school, and who leads a classroom. We support all of those entities so that students get the excellent education they deserve. We look at the trifecta and the integration of curriculum, instruction, and culture. The breakdown of any one of those will cause the breakdown of all of those. So we really take time to support the improvement in all of those areas. But before we go any further, today is Thursday. In my family, we always stop on Thursdays. We call it a Thankful Thursday. And we take time to itemize what we're thankful for as a family. So I'm going to ask you, as part of my Let's Talk Power Live family, to stop and to name what you are thankful for. Let me tell you what I'm thankful for. I'm thankful for the opportunity to have met some fantastic educators in Ghana. I'm going to be leading a panel at the Ghana ASC conference this year, coming up next, actually the 14th, actually it's the 18th to the 20th. I'm going to be leaving around the 16th or so. But I got the opportunity to meet two of the panelists today. And what a wonderful conversation. Every time I meet an educator from a place outside of the United States, I'm always grateful because I reinforce for myself that the challenges we face here in the States are not state challenges, they're universal challenges. They just look different by context. So I'm grateful for that. And the other thing I want you to do is to name what you're grateful for. It's always good. Studies have shown the real benefits of being intentionally grateful. So that's what we're grateful for. So now, what are we going to be talking about today? We're going to be talking about the summer. It is the summertime. We have some real ideas to discuss regarding the summer and what it means to be an educator during the summer. We know things are different for educators during the summer than most people think they are. And so we're going to do some myth dispelling, but we're going to have a real conversation. We spent the last few months talking about testing. We talked about power in a very real concrete way. I took a step back and went back into my book and did some real deep diving and deconstructing of some of the principles. And I'm going to continue to do that. As the author of Understanding Your Instructional Power, power is the thing I talk about. People ask me all the time, why do you talk about power? I talk about power in education because power is real. We like to talk about it conceptually. We hear things like, yes, the power dynamics. We have to disrupt the power dynamics. We talk about it without having the operational framework to do so. My work sets forth the operational framework to actively disrupt the power dynamics that are harmful to young people, to actively disrupt them with intentionality. So you see the title, The Other Summer Slide. We know that young people have what has been deemed a summer slide. Their skills atrophy, they get a little foggy in the brain. When they get back to school, it's as if they've never been taught anything or they never learned anything. Well, we're going to talk over the next few weeks about the other summer slide. And that other summer slide is the adult in the classroom summer slide. That's your summer slide. If you are a classroom level educator, this conversation is for you. This is the other summer slide conversation that we're going to be talking about. And as I said earlier, what we talk about here at Liaison Educational Partners is about the intersection, the integration, the trifecta of curriculum, language, curriculum instruction, and culture. And we focus on a 5-phase process of improvement. Educators at every level are all about action. We are problem solvers and we go right to doing and fixing. Unfortunately, that doing and fixing sometimes means that we're not fixing what actually should be fixed, and the thing that we should fix doesn't get addressed. So what we do is we take time to learn. We believe in learning, really getting down into what might be some challenges. And from there, we work on planning, we work on implementation or action, and then we work on evaluation and we work on integration. In order for there to be long-term systemic change and improvement, you must go through these 5 steps, not in a linear way, but you must be able to do the learning, have a strategic, strong plan, really decide what gets implemented, what gets applied. Then you want to look at evaluating it for effectiveness. And then you want to keep what's working and integrate it and go back to the process again. That's the process that we put in place. That's our strategic movement at Liaison Educational Partners. And as in every week, you know what I'm going to ask you. Do you have your copy of Understanding Your Instructional Power, Curriculum and Language Decisions to Support Each Student? It is summer. A lot of folks are going to the beach. They're packing up their Yeti coolers. They're putting in their romance novels. They're putting things on their Audible tracks, books on their Audible list. I have my Audible list list as well. As you're getting ready to do a sort of decompression and sort of empty your brain out from the last school year, want to ask you and invite you to make this book part of your reading. I'm going to put a banner up so that you can actually get, you see the QR code on the screen right there. Here is a banner right here that's going to also allow you to get your book via Amazon. If you choose to get your book via Amazon, I'm going to ask you to do 2 things. I'm going to ask you to take a picture of yourself with the book, and actually 3 things. Take a picture of yourself with the book, tag us on social media using hashtag Instructional Power, and then please go to Amazon and leave us a review. Here's what I have heard from people. This book changes the way you think. It really does open your eyes to see the learning environment through a different set of lenses, through a different set of eyes. It gives you language for relational challenges that maybe you didn't recognize was going on. So get your book, give us a like on it, give us a review on Amazon for it. And speaking of like, have you taken the time to like this particular session? Go ahead, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, share what we talk about here at Let's Talk Power Live. People say, do you have a podcast? This is podcast-ish. It's podcast light. We want this to be a live conversation. I want this to really speak to a lot of challenges that we're facing, but also give strategic ways so that we can have hopeful outcomes and the better outcomes that our kids deserve. So get your book, make sure that you have it, and like, subscribe, and share this channel with others. So people ask me all the time, Dr. Marshall, Dr. Tanji, what is instructional power? How do we name it? Why did you call it that? Here is what it is in the nutshell. It's a simple thing. It is the job ascribed power, right? It can be understood as an educator's use of their state, district, or building ascribed job-related authority to afford or constrain a student's access to education. We think of it this way. You can afford access to education in the simplest of ways. It comes down to the space where you, as an educator in a classroom, determines who gets wait time in a question and who does not get wait time. You decide whether you're going to repeat the answer of a student or whether you're going to ask that student to repeat themselves. That is a power dynamic. It is a power decision. We make more than 1,500 decisions every single day. for every 60 minutes or so, 60 seconds rather. For every minute, right? Four within a minute, right? Yes, I got the math right. So we make a lot of decisions. And every decision comes down to whether it will afford or constrain access to a student's educational opportunities. That's what that power is all about. So last week or the last couple of months, really wanted to dig in and give you some concrete understanding about the dimensions, the environmental descriptive dimensions when it comes to really understanding one's instructional power. There are four. There could be many, but I wrote them based upon four areas I was really seeing in my own research. The four I came up with is number one, it's empowering. It's an environment that is empowering. And in a moment, I'm going to show you what that looks like. It could also be agentic, it could be power protecting, or it can be disenfranchising. Those are the four major categories of the ways in which power gets used and creates the culture in the environment. So these are basically descriptions of how students are experiencing their learning environment. So if it is empowering, it is marked by intentional, purposeful partnerships. Young people know about their agency. They're able to exercise and practice it in authentic ways. They are in real dialogue with educators at the outset, not just as a factor, not just as a glib, as a cliche. They're really partners in the process of learning. That is what the empowering dimension one is all about. In number two, the agency or the agentive one, that is where young people are beginning to learn about power. It still has some educator centeredness. The adult is still primarily centered in that, but the young people in the room are learning about it. There's going to be active opportunities to practice. And I say that agency practice and what I mean by that is practicing agency in a way that doesn't lead to punishment. A lot of times, young people will exercise their agency because that's what they do. But the way in which the adult perceives it can create challenges for the young person. And in this environment, in the agentic and the empowering environment, young people are learning about agency, how to use it. They have examples of it, they're practicing it. And the difference in this one is that in dimension two, it's still very heavily adult centered. They're still maybe focusing more on managed choice than academic agency. And what I say by managed choice is adults believe that students have agency when students are making choices the adult creates for them. That is not student agency. That is active choice making. But the choices are still adult centered. The difference between real agency and managed choices, the young person is making up the decisions and they are giving themselves a choice. They're going beyond the bingo boards and the choice boards. That's managing choice. So in this environment, in dimension two, there may still be some heavier choice management on the adult side than in the empowering one. When we get to the protective piece, power protection shows up in two ways. It is the adult protecting themselves and the adult protecting the system. So you're having this place where the adult is definitely in charge. This is an adult centered learning environment. This is the learning environment where when students ask that question, why do we have to do this? The adult is threatened by student questions. This is a rule-centered environment. This is a place where the power of the pen to send the child to the office is in full effect. This is a referral-heavy environment. The adult is centered. The child or the learner is going to be most likely in compliance mode. They're not going to be defiant. Some might, you ever don't know, but the system here in this room, if you know anything about Paulo Freire, where he talks about the banking model of education, this is the room, the environment that is banking model centered. It is adult centered, and kids are there to do what the adults tell them to do. And then finally, it is the disenfranchising. This is the room that is toxic. This is the room where even the quote unquote best students are struggling. This is intensely rule focused, it is top down, it is adult centered, and the academics are probably not flourishing. The tricky thing about power protecting is that in some instances, students are doing quite well academically. So it's hard to get a sense of what's really going on. And therefore, you miss it. As a leader, you might miss the power protection going on. But in disenfranchising, it is really something that the adults show they show a lack of care for the students they have the privilege to serve. And so those four are really the primary ways in which young people, through my research, have experienced a learning environment. So let's talk about this summer slide. It's your summer slide. We don't call it summer slide for adults. I was looking for the terms, like, so what do we call it for the adults? What do we call it for the adults? We don't call it anything for the adults. But here's what's going on. The same thing is going on with your kids. I was in the classroom for 15 years or more, and I remember when the end of the year, we were pulling packets together. We were getting book lists together. We were sending letters home to the parents. We wanted our parents and caregivers to make sure that their students stayed on top of all the skills that they had spent the whole year, spent 10 months learning, refining, and growing. We did not want those skills to atrophy because they were particularly my last few years when I was teaching 8th grade. They were going to high school. We wanted to make sure that when they got there, everything that they had done stuck and they were ready to move forward. We do that for young people. We don't always take that same intentionality when it comes to adults. And so we experience our own summer slide. Just think back. Think forward. When you go to your in service for the start of the year, the first thing is it's our first day back. It's our first day back. We're not in teach mode yet. We're not in school mode yet, and that is how our brains are behaving because we have not been in the day-to-day action of the educational process. So what is it like? What does the research have to say about this? First and foremost, there is a cognitive disengagement. We can see that, right? Your knowledge, your self-efficacy, your planning, you're not doing that. So you're disengaged. Your cognition in that area is disengaged. You almost cut it off. That creates a slide on your own. Then we have planning avoidance. You're not trying to plan in July or August, depending upon when you may go back to school. Your planning skill begins to soften, not weaken, but it definitely does soften. It takes a hit. It definitely takes a hit. And then there's a loss of pedagogical sharpness. You know that when you go back to school, it takes some time for you to get back in the swing. And I believe that's one of the reasons why at the start of school, the first week, teachers, particularly at the classroom level, educators at the classroom level, take such a long time to quote unquote set the environment. It takes time for them to get back in the swing, and it takes time for their students to get back in the swing as well. And the thing about the students is they're getting, for both, you're both new to each other. You're learning each other. And it takes more than a week to do it, but that pedagogical sharpness is still not there. That acuity is not there after months off and really not engaging in the everydayness of that. And then finally, there's a disconnect, right? There's a disconnect from some of the changes that are going on in the environments around you. So that's what the research has said around the adult summer slide. We do not call it adult summer slide. We just don't call it anything. And we pretend as though it does not exist. The summer slide is real and it exists. And so let's talk about some empowering engagement so that you can stem the tide of your summer slide. So, a couple of things, right? We want to pause, we want to probe, we want to get some powerful propositions underway. First things first, pause. Please give yourself time to think. Your brain actually does need the reset. It does need space to do some sense making that you may not have been able to do during the school year. Next, let's probe what words might best describe the culture of this past year in your classroom. What could that have been? Right? If you had to think about which of those four dimensions, those descriptive dimensions, which of those four would best describe your learning environment? And then powerful propositions. What has been the distance between what you say you value and your actions? We want that distance to be as small as possible. So that's one of the first things we want you to do. Take that pause, that probe, that powerful proposition perspective and some critical considerations. And then I want to show you this because when I did the pause, the probe, the powerful considerations on my own learning environment, here's where I landed. As you can see, I had moments when things were empowering. I had moments when things were agentic, but to my dismay and sorrow, I had some disenfranchising moments, some real serious disenfranchising moments, and I had some power protecting moments. How did I figure that out? I figured that out because I began to ask myself a set of critical questions. I gave myself a tool through which I began to open my own eyes to understand the quality of the learning environment I was creating for. And hear me clearly, I was creating it for. That was my power protecting. When I began to create with, I moved into agency developing dimension 2 and dimension 1. So this summer, when you take time to pause, to probe, and to get some powerful propositions, you might find that you end up in all four of these. That's great because now you know what's next. Now you know how to ask yourself some critical questions. And in the book, I have a whole set of tools that will allow you to really do the pause, probe, and considerations that you can move forward to ensure that you're really closer to being more in dimension 2 and dimension 1. So let's think about some patterns, your power, and some possibilities. So patterns, let's consider some patterns here. What routines, language, or norms did I continue without question? That is the pause and probe. What questions, norms, what were you just holding on to without even questioning? You know what? I did it last year. I do it all the years. That's that. Another one. Which patterns in my practice served students and which ones served me or the system more? Who was served more by the practices you decided to integrate into your pedagogy? That's some patterns to think about. What patterns did you see, right? And then what did I do simply because that's how we do it? What patterns did you see across that as you take time this summer to Pause and think. These are some probing questions to ask yourself as you go through this process, even when you're at the beach, even when you're sitting in your living room, sitting on your deck, sitting wherever, in your apartment, in your home, wherever you're taking time to pause and consider, how am I going to get myself back in gear for the coming year? What about power? Let's think through this thing from a power perspective. Number one, what power dimensions best describe your environment? Which ones best describe? How did I use my power to protect students and build toward authentic agency? How'd you do that? Did you do that? Do you even know how to do that? If you don't know how to do that, you are in the right place, because the tools in the book are going to get you to the right place. And then, what did I unintentionally use my power? That's a great one. When did I unintentionally use my power to control or silence students? That's another power question. And then, how does my understanding of authority shape my instructional decisions? Because that last one, that's going to determine how much of dimension 1 and 2 you rest in versus how much of 2, 3, and 4, or 3 and 4 you might rest in. So these are the power considerations, right? These are the powerful propositions, the considerations for that. Let's tackle possibility. Now, what would shifting my instructional power look like for the coming year? What's it going to take for you to shift that power dynamic? What's one aspect of my instruction I want to reimagine? How can you reimagine to build towards authentic agency development? And then, how could I plan with purpose? What does it look like to purposely plan for agency development? That is the question. I ask leaders this question, and I'm so thrilled when I go back to Ghana. My session is going to be on creating the conditions for student agency. If student agency is not a specific plan in a leader's strategic plan, it isn't going to happen school-wide. It's going to happen in pockets when there is a teacher over here or one over here who is reading up on authentic student agency, who on that teacher who has understanding your instructional power. But as a leader, and I know this conversation about Summer Slide is really for the teacher in the classroom leader, the teacher in the room. But if you're a leader and you're listening, I want to really challenge and charge you to think about your strategic plan coming up and make sure you have in there explicit call out for professional learning and development on student agency development. So those are your power, your possibilities that you really want to think through, right? And your patterns, those three together. So how do we disrupt your slide? How do we disrupt your slide? Here's one tool. Last week, you heard me talk about it. The Instructional Power 101 is available. It is our first on demand. It is off the shelf. You can go grab it. It's at our website. I'm going to put my website up here right now. You can go to our website right now, click the link, and sign up. It is completely self-directed. You do it at your own pace. There are 7 modules there. And the great thing is you get a completion certificate at the end, which might even go towards your CEUs if you got to do that for a renewal, right? And we would love to have you enjoy this summer slide defying. It's a summer slide defying self-directed course that we would love to have you take part in. So that is one of the ways that we're inviting you to stem the tide of your summer slide this particular year. So number 1, decision making that drives towards agency and empowerment. Want you to do that, right? That's the kind of work you want to do. You're going to understand how to use your power. and then you're going to work towards sustainable change and then learn from real classrooms. There are case studies in the book. You get my personal research from other actual classroom leaders who dealt with and really challenged themselves to consider their own instructional power. That's what you get when you avail yourself of Instructional Power 101. Go ahead and take advantage of that. Stem the slide of your tide. Stem the slide of your tide this summer. I didn't say that right. Stem the slide this summer. There it is. So excited. So here it is. It's 7 modules, self-guided. It deepens your practice. It is going to, you have no deadlines, right? You got no deadlines. So it's perfect for the summer. You work at your own pace and it is flexible and you're able to really go into the coming school year with a brand new set of tools that will make relationship building 10 times easier. There's a lot of talk about teachers having to build strong relationships. We take that language for granted. You have to be intentional. You got to know yourself before you can know the kids. In this particular learning module, you will be able to do that. Learn yourself. So when the kids get in the room, you are ready. So how does it work? It is designed for individual educators, right? Or teams. If you want to grab your friends, hey, I'm not going to tell you no, but it's designed for individuals or teams who really want to rethink their instructional practices, right? You move through the content, like I said, on your own time and at your pace. It is the perfect summer beach learning tool. No one's going to tell you that there's a deadline. You can do it however you want to do it. And then you can combine it with other summer journaling. If you are learning other concepts, this can go right along. It can also fit in with whatever school learning you might be doing as well. So this is a learning companion that you can pick up and take wherever you like. So let's recap. What did we talk about today? The other summer slide is your summer slide, right? We want to really get into, I'm going to blow this up this time. No, I'm not. There we go. There it is. So we talked about your patterns. We talked about power and possibility. We also talked about the empowering engagement so that you can stop the slide so that when the summer ends, you are ready to move forward. And then the Instructional Power 101. Invite you to take advantage of that. Again, there's the link right there. Go ahead. It is self-directed, self-guided, no deadlines, move at your own pace. A lot of work that we did this week today. So excited about it. So looking ahead, what are we talking about? We're going to talk about power moves that matter next week. The week after that, planning with purpose and not avoiding that power, right? We want to plan with purpose and not with pressure. Summer, it's going to give you some time to plan some things, not a lot, but give you some ways to think about it. And then we're going to do some instructional power in action. I think in that week, we might go over some case studies. I don't know. It's 4 weeks away. Things change. But that's where we're headed so far. Well, we're ready to wrap up about this time. Make sure you get your book, like I said. And when you get your book, please take a picture of yourself with it and tag us on your social media outposts. And please leave us a review on Amazon. Remember also to like, to share, and subscribe to this channel. Power in education is real. Every student deserves an excellent education, and the extent to which adults tap into their power priorities, to their power ideologies, is the extent to which young people are going to get that excellent education. So people ask me, how can we partner? So many ways. What other ways can we connect? Number one thing, we do author-led book studies. Would welcome the opportunity to do that, to come meet with your staff, meet with your teams, and talk about power in your learning environment. We also do keynotes. I have one coming up next week. Looking forward to that. And then we can also talk about ways that may not be outlined here. Would love to chat with you to get a sense of what your pressing pain points are and how liaison educational partners can support you. Thank you, everybody, for joining today. And we will see you next week for another conversation of Let's Talk Power Live.